Welcome and thank you for joining us for this morning seminar and online masterclass in how to sell your software to the Danish market and becoming a supplier to the Danish public sector. My name is Soren. Most of you will have been in touch with me by now. I'm a trade advisor here in Denmark and I cover the technology sector. So my job is to help suppliers like yourselves exploring your opportunities here in Denmark. We are starting now with some opening remarks from Christina Liers, who is the European investment lead here at the Department for International Trade. She's also the regional director for the Europe North region. Before I hand over the word to Christina, though, I have some practical announcements that I'd like to share with you. So first of all, this session is being recorded, so if you're short on time, don't worry, you will have access to all the materials and all the content afterwards. I also want to mention that at the end of this seminar, we will be running a short Q&A session. So if you have any questions, any burning desires for things, information that you seek, please just go on to slido.com using your phone or your computer and enter the code software Denmark. You can also scan the QR code here, but if you use slido.com, you'll be able to add your questions throughout the seminar, and we'll be able to pick those questions up at the end. So that is slido.com, enter code software Denmark. I should also mention that we would like to continue the conversation with you after we're done today. So on the page where you're viewing this webinar right now, below you'll see a button that says register your interest. If you press this button, you'll actually be able to choose what sorts of areas of information that you'd like to be contacted about, that you'd like us to follow up about. And that's a great way for us to continue the conversation afterwards. With that, I'll hand over the word to Christina Liers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Søren. Good morning, everybody. It is a real pleasure for me to welcome you to this online masterclass about how to become a software supplier to the public sector in Denmark. Our role here at the Department for International Trade in Copenhagen is to provide trade and investment services to support British companies looking to sell their goods and services to Denmark. We help UK companies succeed by connecting them with partners in the local ecosystem and by highlighting new export opportunities in the market. The purpose of today's masterclass is to introduce you to Denmark as a software market and to make you aware of a new export opportunity here for British software suppliers, both large and small. You see, the way software is procured by the public sector in Denmark is changing. It has just become a lot more accessible for British companies to become a supplier here. Today's seminar is organized in collaboration with the Danish ICT Association and the National Public Procurement Organization in Denmark called SKI. Every year, the public sector buys goods and services for around 44 billion pounds through private companies here in Denmark. And around 2.5% of these procurements are made through SKI. In fact, our first speaker is from SKI, and he will tell you much more about the organization and how you can get access to around 1,200 public sector companies that are all part of the new dynamic procurement system, and all of this is free of charge to you. Now, why should you pay attention to Denmark and the Danish market for software in the first place? Well, while the country is quite small, it stands out in a number of ways. The Danish public sector is one of the world's most digitized, and last year Denmark was given the #1 spot in the UN's e-government survey, ranking countries based on their level of public digitalization. In June, the Danish government launched the country's new digitalization strategy, and the vision is to let digitalization play a central role in solving some of the largest societal challenges that we are faced with. For instance, data and new technologies are seen as cornerstones in combating the impact of climate change and better monitoring of waste. AI for energy optimization and digital platforms for promoting a circular economy are just some examples of how technology can support the green transition. Today's event is part of our Growing Green Together campaign in the Europe's North region for the Department for International Trade. This campaign aims to accelerate the green transition by creating strong international partnerships and links and spreading awareness of the British offer as a green frontrunner in Europe. This summer, the British government also released its own digital strategy, and that strategy puts together the emphasis of the role of international trade and strengthening the UK's position as a science and tech superpower by 2030. And you know, the British technology sector is world-class. We have more tech unicorns than any other country in Europe. And last year, we saw more private sector capital flow into the UK tech sector than anywhere else in Europe too. The UK has some of the world's most vibrant technology companies and hubs, and this is thanks to the leading universities and the thousands of highly skilled workers that make up the British tech ecosystem. Today, we wish to show you that there's a lot of potential here for technology exporters looking for a landing pad in the Nordics and in Denmark. It is our ambition that by the end of today's masterclass, you will have a much better understanding of Denmark as a software market, and will know all about the new dynamic procurement system for software introduced by SKI. You will also have heard from a British software consultancy that has succeeded in establishing a business in Copenhagen and who has years of experience of supplying software to the public sector in the UK as well. You will also know what to be aware of when selling software to Denmark after Brexit. And then in the end, you will find out how you will get access to the free package of services and special offers that we have tailored for you, specifically to the participants of this masterclass today. We hope that you find today's program really useful and interesting. So now let's get going. I would urge you to grab a cup of tea, sit back and enjoy the masterclass. Thank you, Søren. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Christina. I think this gives us a really good context for welcoming our first speaker. Allan Schillerup Bager is a chief consultant at SKI, the organization that Christina talked about. And Allan will give us an introduction to Denmark as a software market, the public sector and what it procures, and how you can get a piece of that cake as a British software supplier. Thank you very much, Allan.
Yeah, welcome. My name is Allan, and
I think the slides are coming up in a second.
Yeah, my name is Allan. I'm from SKI, and we have agreed with the British Embassy and Søren to actually have a small, let's say, marketing event here to try to give you an understanding of Denmark, the Danish market, and our offerings in the Danish market. So let's get on with it. Okay, here's the agenda that we have prepared for you. Short welcome. That should be done by now, and then we will go on with a few facts about Denmark and SKI. We will talk about. I will talk about a little bit about dynamic procurement systems and why we are using those in the Danish market for software. And we will dive into one of them, an agreement called Software as a Service, SKI 0206, which can help you start off in the Danish market at the lowest possible cost and effort. So that will be the thing that I will cover. With me from SKI, I have also Leon and Lene, who is in the room, and they will help me answer some questions later on if needs be. You have a small green dot at the bottom of your screen that says visit ski.dk, but in our strange language, no matter. But the website is okay. ski.dk has a small English section where you can seek further information if you need. Okay, let's go into Denmark then. The Kingdom of Denmark, no less. Well, we are a small country. Some think that Denmark is actually the capital of IKEA, That's not true. We actually have a capital called Copenhagen, where we are right now, and we have a population about 5.6 million. We have, of course, 3 levels of government. Of course, the ministries. Then we have 5 regions that are focusing on healthcare primarily, and then 98 municipalities. And if you add that up, even though we can say let's say there's roughly 20 ministries, that does not add up to 1,200 customers in the public sector, as Christina mentioned earlier. But that's because there is also energy companies, high schools, all kinds of smaller entities that are also counted as customers by SKI, and should also be done so by you because they buy a lot of stuff. So it's it is a market around 12 to 1,300 entities that are relevant for your sales efforts. Yeah, some numbers. I think. Oh, sorry. We could just take a few facts about SKI first. We are put in the world to actually help with the purchasing of goods and services and IT, of course, in Denmark. So what we do for the 1,200 customers, and we provide an access to the market for them that is easier than if they had to go into tenders by themselves all the time. And why do I talk about tenders? Yeah, well, as you know, you have had a lot of work around the legislation about public tendering in the EU. Now you're rid of it, but if you want to go into the Danish market, you're back again and need to be able to handle that. And what we do in SKI is to ensure that you can buy that as a as easily as possible. We have around 150 people working to prepare all these tenders, and we have, as we speak, around 56 frameworks where you can sell all your stuff. As of right now, I don't think we have any British suppliers in our agreements, but we are certainly hoping that you will consider that. Especially in the software market, as we will speak about a little bit later on. The software is an easy part to an easy way to get into the Danish market. So yes. I think I've covered that. We we have a mission of making public procurement more efficient and professional. So we are doing our very best to help making the customer's purchase as easy as possible, and your selling as easy as possible. And that's why we are here. We don't. We are a government-owned entity, and for that we do not need to make money. We just need to make enough to actually cover our costs. But we are actually a service for you. Okay. A few numbers. We covered some of them. But through our frameworks, last year we had 1.6 billion euros running through our business. And as you can see, that we have already 688 companies involved in SKI agreements as we speak. And hopefully some of you will increase that number shortly. The savings potential is something that we calculate because we say, okay, list prices is one thing, but if we can make a nice framework, our customers will save a lot of money, and that represents 300 million euros a year. Okay. We have a wide area of framework agreements, both goods and services, but also IT and telecommunication. And that what we will look at today is just one of the dots under IT and telecommunication, the third one from the bottom, called software as a service. So let's talk a bit about dynamic purchasing systems. Well, until now we have had a very strong focus on frame agreements, where we make competition around highly standardized stuff that'll be let's call it goods and services and also IT, where the same needs goes for all customers. But as you know, that's not all your purchases that are that way. Some of them are characterized with a high-speed market development, new things evolving all the time. A good part of the market is driven by you as the producers, and a lot of customers have very different situations and therefore different needs that needs to be fulfilled. And a frame agreement that runs unchanged for maybe 4 years cannot cover that. So that's why we have taken a focus on dynamic purchasing systems. Especially for IT, they are highly relevant because IT, as you know, is changing so rapidly that almost nothing is constant for 4 years. So dynamic purchasing systems is a good thing, and it's good news for you for a lot of reasons. If we look at the dynamic purchasing systems as opposing to the frame agreements, there is a lot of good stuff. You can make dynamic products. You can update your products all the time. We as a customers can get a lot of new vendors on a dynamic purchasing system. Tailor-made solutions is possible. Innovations is also possible. And as for vendors, and that might be highly relevant for you, it's both possible to be very good at what you do in a small niche, or you can also be a big range vendor that can cover all the customers' needs. And that is one of the strengths about dynamic purchasing systems, that you can actually have both types of vendors inside it. So whether you're one or the other or something in between, you can have a very good situation by being a vendor in a dynamic purchasing system. Okay, there is a small backside to dynamic purchasing systems, but I don't think we should talk a lot about those. But we do push a little bit more work out to the vendors on bidding on all the customers' needs. And that's of course something that you need to consider. But the customers also have a little bit more work because they need to build a list of needs and the requirements every time, instead of that in a framework agreement they are all done beforehand. But the dynamics of the dynamic purchasing system is outperforming these smaller issues by far. So let's take a look. This is a representation of what IT solutions we have in SKI. Oh, sorry. And as you can see, there is hardware and network services in the bottom, and the more complex stuff on top, where we have, for example, an IT operations agreement and some of the other. The one that I've marked with a red ring around them is actually dynamic purchasing systems, and the one we'll dive into today is the one called standard software, where you can see some of the benefits of actually using that as a sales channel for your products and services. So let's jump into that. We have sorry. No matter. We have opened this software as a service dynamic purchasing system some 18 months ago. And it is in a market in rapid development, technically and commercially. There is a lot of software products, and as one of my colleagues keep repeating, everything turns into software at some point. So that is very relevant for this. It's also a global market, and that's actually why we're standing here. There is a lot of players out there, but there is no such thing as a Danish software market. It's also all about global players, and that is why we want to help you get into it. Even if you don't have a Danish representation, that should be possible. Sometimes, you know, the customer's need can only be met by one vendor because they might have some software and they need to actually buy some more. That's seen very often, and the agreement can handle that. But it can also handle that the situation where the need is more abstract and the solution might be multiple, and in that situation all vendors are head to head in a open competition. So we have, as we speak, 275 vendors on this agreement. We have the customers have done a surplus of 500 tenders, and not all vendors have won anything, but a large proportion, around 100 vendors have actually got contracts through this agreement. So. But let's dive into what we can actually buy in this agreement. There's 5 things, and some might think that because the agreement is called a software as a service, there has always to have has to be software involved in a purchase on this agreement. That's actually not true. So yes, you can of course sell your standard software, off-the-shelf software, commercially available, or pre-packed, as we sometimes call it. But the support and maintenance agreements for that software packages can also be sold. Implementation efforts, installation, configuration of the purchased software can be sold here. And if you need to actually run a specific project to implement the software, you can also do that. So there's always there's wide possibilities. You can also sell the training of the purchased software, and also consultancy. Also consultancy related to if you should buy it or not. So it doesn't have to be all at one time. Maybe you buy the software and some support and maintenance as a customer, and then later you find out that the customer find out that that they need your services to actually implement the software, or to build it into your IT context back home. Or so there's a lot of possibilities right here. So if you're a software company listening in here, that's fine. But if you are a consultancy company using standard software like SAP or whatever to solve your customers' needs, you can also be on this agreement and sell your consultancy, as long as it's related to the standard software that is on the agreement. You can use this agreement to get into contact with your market. So that, I hope that is quite clear, because now I'll dive into something that is quite important. If you are one of these companies that is relevant here, well, you can actually get onto this frame agreement quite easily. We have 2 categories. One of them is to sell very large quantities of software and services, and for that you need 2 references of 20 million Danish kroner. That's around 2.5 million pounds, more or less. So if you are if you handle very large software deals, that would be the place to go. But the category 2, you only need 2 references of 200,000 Danish kroner. That's 25,000 pounds. That's almost 40,000 pounds. That's almost nothing. So it's very easy to get into this agreement. We tend to say that you can do this in half a day, and then we have 10 days to look into references, and if everything is okay, you're on and ready to sell and ready to hunt. And that is very easy. So you have very easy access to the Danish market, and that is actually the reason that we stand here, because you can start here, and then we can talk about with you about what's next. What's the next software agreement that could the next frame agreement that dive into after this. Yeah, that's about it. We have a possibility to answer some questions. I have my colleagues here in the room. We might have some questions from Slido. So otherwise.
Yes, exactly. And this is just a reminder that we're using Slido to manage the Q&A. So any questions you post will come in and appear on my screen over here. There is one question that has come in now, and we can take that, and then there will also be time for questions and answers at the end.
Yeah.
And isn't it also true that if companies would like to get in touch with SKI, that is also possible? And you can indicate that on the website using the register your interest button. We have one question, which is, it might not be a ski question, but perhaps you can give a perspective on it. The question is Denmark considering its own single window platform for customs import and export entries along with AEO management, which I think is authorized economic operators? But this is a specific question about, is Denmark looking to procure this? And I imagine that there will be some companies out there with specific solutions. What would you recommend as the next step if you have a specific solution and you're looking to find out whether this is a match with what the Danish public is looking for?
Yeah, I think first of all, we have a good impression about what is going on in the Danish market. And secondly, we can also see some of the tenders in EU. So if anyone has said that they have some interest in buying this, there would be an entry in the TED database where you can follow these things. But otherwise, if you have a specific question about the Danish market, and if someone is looking for something, call us. We might know.
Okay, that's really good advice. Thank you so much, Allan, for your presentation. I'll just see a few things happen here on my screen. There's one question which we have time for. For ski, do you need to speak Danish to get onto the dynamic frameworks and respond to tenders?
Normally, yes. But in this case, with the software as a service contract, we are in the process of having all our material translated into English, so that it is possible to use the material directly. And most of my colleagues are also fluent in English, so it should not be a barrier to actually sell something on this frame agreement.
Right. Well, thank you so much. We'll get back to the other questions at the end if there is time. And otherwise, we'll try to respond to all the questions in the system. And if you once again are really interested in getting an answer to your question, you can just reach out to us using the form on the website where you registered, or using the button on your screen. Okay, this you can walk down this way, and I think that from my side, I want to say that we've been very interested in talking to Ski and presenting this opportunity for a very long time to companies like yourselves, because we consider this a great opportunity to get access with relatively low entry requirements to all these 1,200, 1,300 public sector customers that are part of the dynamic purchasing system 0206. So it can be a really good entry point for companies like you out there. Now we are turning to Jeppe Handberg, who is from the consultancy called Fortem. Fortem is specialized in bid management, bid writing, and they've seen hundreds of tender processes. And Jeppe will be sharing some of his top tips on how you can approach the Danish contracting system and how you can win these contracts. That's a lot to promise.
Exactly. Thank you. I want to start off by by saying something in relation to the last presentation. It is very easy to get on this dynamic purchasing system, and if you're on it, you get the possibility to use Skeet's logos in your marketing, and
The issue with the sound.
Okay, perfect. I'm back. So if you're on this agreement, you can use the marketing, their logo in your marketing, and you can also use Proactive when you're selling. Okay, so we're trying to fix it.
Otherwise, can we use the handheld microphone, perhaps?
Okay, I'm back on it. Okay, so you can use it also proactively in your sales, because it can be hard to sell to the public in Denmark if you're not on any agreements, big framework agreements or whatever it can be. But when you are on 0206, you can say to the ones you're talking with that you are on this agreement, and if they like, they can put this contract on their out on this system, and then you have a better chance of getting the order. Yes. This is my contact information. Feel free to call or write me. Some short information about Fortem. We were founded in 2015. We are 9 experienced consultants, and we work with many sectors, but primarily IT, construction, and facility management. We have 3 main services, which includes bid management, project management, and strategy. In relation to bid management, we help companies with strategy, solution design, quality, writing, and layout and design. A short description. Here are some of the selected companies we have worked with. My presentation will be based on some key learnings from a project we worked on last year with an English company. The tender was a big hardware and software tender for delivery, installation, further development, and maintenance of ANPR equipment to the Danish National Police. It was a very big tender, but the funny thing about it was that even though all the manufacturers of software and the hardware in relation to ANPR are international, and none of them are from Denmark, all of the material was in Danish. The negotiation rounds has to be held in Danish. So we started the project off by translating all of the tender material into English, so we in collaboration with the company could write our response. Then we have to translate it back into Danish so we could deliver it. So a very strange process, but that is what happens sometimes. The company has no representatives in Denmark at the moment. And now for the 5 tips to write a good and winning offer based on the key learnings from this project, but also from many other projects with companies not being from Denmark. Here you see our Fortem bid value canvas, which can function as a checklist for how to write your offer. When you're writing it, always look at this canvas to see if you follow the structure, that you meet their needs, but also the challenges. And you can say every company who's bidding on a tender will fulfill the needs described in the tender material. Otherwise, it would be a silly thing to bid. But it's not on those needs. You can say you win it. You win it on the evaluation requirements and the value you can add and link to their deeper challenges. And then always, of course, some documentation that proves that you have done this before. You are experienced in delivering what you are offering. Structure your response. Main sections should begin with reader-friendly statements. Maybe focus on your key value offerings in the beginning. Then, build it up, deductive reasoning, and as I said before, specify in terms of your experience at the end. A problem I see with many foreign companies is that they focus a lot on the minimum requirements instead of focusing on the evaluation requirements. As said before, the minimum requirements you will not win the offer on. You win it on the evaluation requirements. And for many tenders, there's also this pre-qualification round. So you need to understand that all of the other bidders, they will live up to the minimum requirements too. A funny thing I have to say that in Denmark, in many, for example, municipalities, that they have maybe one person being in charge of all of their tenders. So 1 week, he or her will have to work on an IT tender. The next week, they will work on a cleaning tender, and so forth. So write your response in mind that the ones you're writing it to, they are not at all experts within this field, and they have no, or close to no knowledge about the field. So make it understandable for someone who's not in this sector. Yes, and in Danish tenders, they always state what is weighted positively. And you can say purchasing have to be a objective thing. So I would like to say that we in Denmark try to be very objective. This is of course not entirely possible, but we have come a long way. So they have to give a reasoning if you, for example, wants to complain about their decision. So it have to be strict in the way they evaluate it. So focus on what they are writing will be evaluated positively. Okay. Then there's this topic about being specific. Write what you will deliver, exactly how, what you will deliver, and how you will deliver it. We had the case I was talking about. We had a lot of discussions about thoughts and considerations and or the mind process behind the offering, and our advice was that write all of these concerns out because it really helps the one evaluating the tenders to see what are the thoughts behind this the solution and behind, for example, how we organize the delivery team. So take them into your thought considerations. Yes. Another thing is that the contracting authority they are not guessing. So in Denmark, if you want to have get points from what you are offering, you have to write it out. Otherwise, they will not evaluate it. So it's very very important. We see it a lot of times, for example, with coders or other very technical personnel that they have a trouble writing exactly what they do and how they do it, because they are too what can you say, they are too deep into the solution, so they think that this is common knowledge for everybody, but it is not, and you have also to assume that the contracting authority, they know nothing about your company or your solution. So if you want to have get points for it, then write it in a language that the contracting authority can understand. Yes, we have been around the point that the people evaluating the tender are not familiar with you or your product or IT for that sake. I've seen in a lot of new tenders and especially within IT actually that user stories is a big thing. And I would also recommend you to use user stories, because I think it's a very good way to make something technical and maybe complex, make it into a more simple storytelling, because you can always see when it's written in user stories what is the value that it brings, how is it done down to to where's the comma, or if you can follow me. So a good idea would be to use user stories actively. Yes. Active writing. It's very important, and we see this a lot actually too, that you write in an active language, which means, for example, that you use the sentences, we will deliver this, we will arrange a startup meeting, or whatever it can be, because this is this is binding, you can say, and you promise something specific to the contracting authority. We see a lot of people, they use the sentence, we used to, for projects like this, we used to deliver or do this, we will arrange this meetings. The contracting authority are not promised anything if you write it in this way, and if they are or play very stupid, they will also consider what are they actually offering us. Yes, and I forgot one thing from the former slide, which was in relation to the evaluation requirements. And the thing is here that many people or many companies, they think it's a good idea to write or to state that we live up to, and then list actually a lot of the requirements. And as I said before, focus on the evaluation requirements and not the minimum requirements. Very important. Yes, that was all for me, but I hope that you can use these key learnings and feel free to contact us at any time. And please go and be a part of 0206. It will, at the maximum, take you half a day. It's a very easy process, and we've helped a lot of companies join this dynamic purchasing system.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jeppe. Do you have time for a few questions?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Because we've received some questions during this presentation, which I thought was really good because it gave some very practical tips on how you can make your bid writing better.
Thank you.
One of the questions here was specifically about the user stories that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So they're asking, what do you mean exactly by that? Do you mean just writing the tender in a user-centric language? Or is it more like user stories as we know from software development, where it's as a user, I need X to achieve Y? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. For example, on this tender, because we were asked to like explain, how would this function in real life? How what is the process? What is the working flows? So we made up a story about a policeman. We called him, I think it was Kevin, and then we focused on a workday in his life from when he enters the job, and how the system and the software we were providing, how is he using it? What is all of the key benefits? So we wrote the response in a day, in a working day, based on what is happening when he's driving around his police car. He will look down on the screen which is installed in the vehicle, and it will give him some hits. Then he will go and look into some of the other systems for seeing if there's a criminal record on the guy, and so in that way, because the good thing about writing in this way is that the value beneath what is exactly stated in the tender is highlighted, because we focus on how is his life made easier by our solution, and not just explaining what is the solution, but how does it help the police on a daily basis and make their work easier. So that is some of the underneath challenges that you will have the possibility to raise.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeppe.
Thank you.
Now we have a short break. I want to just highlight some of the presentations that we have afterwards. So we will hear from my colleague Michelle Christensen, who's our market access advisor, who will tell you what you need to be aware of when you're selling your software into Denmark. Then we'll hear from Leeds-based BJSS, a company that has recently established a presence in Denmark. And finally, I'll tell you some of the contents of this package of offerings that we've put together to provide you with, so that you don't leave this seminar empty-handed. So grab a refreshment on that cup of tea that Christina asked you to get, and then we'll see you back here in 5 minutes' time. Welcome back. We are broadcasting here live from the British Embassy in Copenhagen. I hope we remembered to mention that at the very beginning, but I hope that you had a chance to get some refreshments. We certainly did ourselves, and we also had a short discussion about how we're going to organize the question and answer session at the end. So at the end of this session, you'll be able to ask questions to every single speaker that has been here. You'll be able to ask questions to the British Embassy and hear more about the services that we offer and get some of those questions answered. I already see that there are quite a few questions, so we might need to prioritize them at the end, just so that you're aware of that. The next speaker is Michelle Christensen. She is the Market Access Advisor here at the British Embassy, and she's a specialist in helping resolve market access barriers and educate in what you need to be aware of as a supplier selling software into Denmark specifically. So without further ado, I'll hand over the word to Michelle, and we'll change over to her slides, I think. Marcellus? Thank you.
Thank you, Søren, and thank you for having me here today. I will talk a little bit about what you should be aware of when you're exporting software into Denmark. I don't know the answer to everything, but I'll do my best to answer your questions, and if I can't, please just follow up afterwards, and I'm happy to have a conversation about it. The presentation I have here includes some of the main points that you need to be aware of. It might not cover everything, so please do some due diligence yourself as well when you're about to export. The presentation will be shared afterwards. It has my contact details as well. Please do note, however, that this does not constitute legal advice. For that, you should seek out a lawyer. See if this works. There we go. Now you might be thinking, what is a market access advisor? Which is actually a brilliant question, because I think the majority don't know. My main aspects of my role is to understand the terms of trade between the UK and Denmark following Brexit. It's also to understand barriers to trade when they are encountered and how we can potentially resolve these barriers if needed. And then what is a market access barrier, you might ask? There are a couple of different ones. Usually we can say that they are the result of EU or Danish legislation when we're speaking from a UK point of view. It can be the implementation of legislation in the member state. It can also be due to legal void barriers, where there's simply missing regulations or missing legal laws. Or it can be divergent barriers, where member states and the UK are just diverging, since our regulatory frameworks are now potentially moving in different directions. It's important to note that everything is not a barrier, and sometimes it's just an issue as a new way of trade between the UK and the EU. And this is just how the trade is now, and as such, not a barrier. In general, when we talk about market access barriers, there are quite a lot of them. We can say that they, as a general rule, are something that delay or obstruct UK businesses or investment into overseas markets, so in this case, into Denmark. The slide you're seeing currently showcases some of the most common barriers that we see. Luckily, Denmark is actually quite a good market in this aspect, and we don't see many of these barriers in Denmark. But it's always good to be aware of them, to note them down. If there are legislative changes in Denmark, these might actually occur and become a barrier. The main barrier we do see in Denmark is around business mobility. This might not be too relevant for your area of work. However, if you do plan on sending people to the Danish market to carry out any sort of work, any sort of installment or the like, you might need a work permit for that. I would recommend for anything that you always check with the Danish authorities on the link provided in this slide before you send anyone to work in Denmark. As a general rule, we can say that all work carried out in Denmark requires a work permit if you're from a third-party country. The only exceptions are usually meetings, conferences, and a few other things. So as such, please make sure to check out whether you need a work permit. I won't pretend to be an expert on this topic, and we have a lot of those already online and in the room as well. But before you start your export journey, my advice would be to determine whether you're exporting your software as a service or as a product, as it may make a difference in how you're exporting. I would assume that you already know, but for software as a product, it lies with the buyer, whereas for software as a service, it is usually a cloud-based solution and it lies with the seller. It might make a difference in how you can export your product, which rules you need to be aware of, so please make sure you understand how you're actually exporting your software. Between the UK and the EU, we have the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, as I hope you're all aware. It is, for the most part, a very good agreement, but no matter how we put it, this will also change the way we trade between the UK and the EU, and in this case, between Denmark. There will be new rules you need to keep in mind, and these will affect both your service, your sector, but also different member states, and they will differ depending on sector and depending on member state, as some legislation is member state based. As such, you should always, before you start your export journey, reach out and read the relevant legislation in the member state you're planning on exporting to, and not assume that the same legislation goes for all member states in the EU, as that is usually not the case. Another thing to be aware of with the TCA is that there are reservations in the TCA that allows the different member states to create new legislation which will restrict investments and sale of services. And as such, you always need to be up to date on the newest legislation in your area to make sure that you're complying with what you need to comply with. As mentioned, if you are traveling to Denmark for business, please make sure that you check up on whether you need a work permit. This slide, I know it contains a lot of information, but there are a lot of relevant links in here that you need to check up on and see whether you need work permit, whether you need anything else before you go to Denmark for the work you want to carry out. For this particular area, it might be worth noting that there is something called the FITTER rule as a work permit in Denmark, which allows you to come into Denmark and install software, heavy machinery, and the like. So this might be an option for you guys if you are going to Denmark to install some of the software you might be selling. That way. As a foreign company, you will also need to, as a foreign company, you will also need to register with the foreign service providers. When you need to, I think I'm on the wrong slide. No, it's right. If you want to carry out any work in Denmark in services. You can register online. It's fairly easy. If you have any questions for them, you can reach them on the number below. It's worth noting that when you register in what is called RUT, you need to provide all your information as you have it on the day you provide it, and you need to provide it before starting any work. If anything changes in what you have registered and the information you've provided, you need to update that on the first day where the new changes are implemented. It's fairly simple, you just do it online. If you do sell B2C, I know this is not what we're covering today, but figured might as well take it as well. Please make sure that you are looking into the VAT rules, as you need to pay VAT regardless of whether it's a service or good. If you do not take this into account yourself, the customer will have to pay the VAT on your behalf. You can use the EU's VAT Mini One-Stop Shop, also known as the MOSS. They have two different schemes running, one for companies established in the EU or with a branch in the EU, and a scheme as well for companies who don't have a branch in the EU and is not established in the EU. And you can read more about that on the link provided here as well. As a business in the UK, you might face certain restrictions when you want to own, manage, or direct a company in the EU, and therefore in Denmark as well. So you should just do some due diligence and be prepared that there might be requirements on the nationality and residency of seniors and senior managers and directors. And there might also be limits to the amount of equity you can hold as a non-national. Additionally, as a foreign investor, you must seek approval for any investments or any special economic agreements you wish to enter into, which are within the particular sensitive sectors or activities listed in the Danish Investment Screening Act. They are all listed here in the red boxes. I would recommend that you check the link provided for further information, and also check up with a lawyer whether any of the tenders you're considering are within any of these. Please note that for the investments, you need to be approved before the agreement can be finalized. So there are certain rules that are very important to note in these specific sectors, so please check up on that. Why is this not working? There we go. Nope. Okay. Final thing here is on data privacy and protection. I think just worth noting that on data adequacy, the EU has stated that it considers the UK GDPR to be equivalent to its own. So as of right now, you can trade data freely between the UK and the EU. However, since we are no longer part of the EU, we might move in different directions. So for GDPR and for anything data, you always need to check the latest legislation to see if any changes have happened that you need to take into account for your software solutions. This was all I had to share with you today. I've added some additional links in the slides as well. These are all for UK, relevant to this topic, and there are some Danish slides as well, which are relevant for you all. And these are my contact details. So thank you for allowing me to share a few things with you today, and thank you to Søren for arranging everything.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for sharing those insights. I think it's really useful to hear just flag some things that companies should be aware of, because while solutions like the SKI 0206 dynamic purchasing system make it easier to be a supplier in some regards, there are some things that you should be aware of and that you should look into before you at least start working on contracts. I believe these slides can be shared afterwards.
Yes.
So we'll make sure that we share those slides along with every other slide that we've shown today, just to make sure that you have the information you need. Great, thank you very much. The next speaker today is Rasmus Kofod Jespersen. Rasmus is the head of BJSS Denmark. BJSS is a company from Leeds that has a long history, which Rasmus will briefly introduce us to. And it's also a company that has recently set up an office with our help and our local partners in Copenhagen. Rasmus will talk to us about his journey, give us a more personal experience on, being a British software company coming into Denmark, and also I believe that you're currently in the process of becoming part of the 0206 agreement yourself. So we look forward to hearing more about all that. Take it away.
Thank you, Søren. Thanks, first of all, for having me here to tell the story of BJSS and Spark and our journey into Denmark. I think it's worth just introducing myself. I am Danish. I've lived abroad for a long time, and 6 years in the UK in London, where I've been heading up the design and innovation part of BJSS that you'll get to know in a minute. You could title this story as well, BJSS expands into Denmark, but you could also say actually, an incumbent becoming a startup, because that is what happens when you move into a new area. So a little bit about us. We are, as mentioned, a Leeds-based, Leeds-headquartered technology company, and we've been around for about 30 years next year. Always with technology and IT delivery at the heart. We have grown a lot. We're growing 30-35% year on year, and we are now more than 2,300 employees, where vast majority is consultants delivering IT solutions to the public and private sector in the UK and in international markets every day. We have a very strong and loyal client base. We work with some of the largest organizations in the UK and worldwide. We'll come back to some of those later. The things we do, the things that we deliver are services. So a professional services company. We started out with engineering 5-6 years ago. We've launched a design and innovation team, and we continue to expand that into data, into AI, into managed services where we can help operate, into consulting, so strategy, throughout to IT delivery. And we work on any technology pretty much, but we have a lot and very deep experience in Microsoft Cloud, and AWS cloud solutions as well that we build on with and for our clients. And as you mentioned, you can see on the right-hand side here, we're working across a number of industries from energy, financial services, health, public sector, which is really what we're here to talk about, as well as retail. So as I mentioned, we have deep knowledge. These are the clients that we're working with in the UK at the moment. And this is what I meant about being an incumbent, really becoming a startup. Because as you can see, we're really good at winning public sector work in the UK. We understand how procurement works, we understand how the framework works, and we are on all the right frameworks. And this is brilliant, it's great. We also conceptually understand that in Denmark, but of course we are not on the frameworks because we are a startup. We are a young, small, dynamic challenger. And that's why the dynamic frameworks that you've heard about earlier fits us so well. And it's great that we can get on those and we're in that process. And hopefully we could be the first British company on the frameworks within a matter of days. I'll show you a little example of what we do, because I think it's more powerful to see and show rather than tell. A little story about DVSA that a lot of you will know, and how we helped them digitize a very paper-based service.
DVSA is a road safety organisation. Our strategy is about keeping people safe on Britain's roads. We want that service to be modern, and this is a journey that we've started now with a test result capture using iPads.
When I became a driving examiner, I couldn't believe how much paper we used and how much paper we wasted.
All that paper needs to be stored in the driving test centre for 2 years as well. There's a high error rate where we can make easy mistakes.
We also had a lot of repetitive writing, a lot of postage. It didn't really work. It was an old system that we made work. We've been working with driving examiners from the start.
We had an early adopter network around the country, so every area, every test centre had a contribution to make.
We had twice monthly conference calls where we discussed any feedback that we had.
It got everybody on board because our feedback was taken into account as well, which was nice.
What really mattered is the 1,600 driving examiners out there were given the opportunity to see it, play with it, and give us their opinion. They're the people that really mattered on this project.
We've provided a lot of training to the examiners. We've got examiners who are, in their own words, are blind dinosaurs with sausage fingers. So we need to develop an app that they feel confident in using.
We brought the iPads out before the digitisation had taken place, and so people got some degree of familiarity.
By doing things like that, we turned the ship around from, I don't want to change from paper, as to, when can I have it? I want it now.
The first test that we used the app was a little bit nervous, to be honest.
All my colleagues were very jealous that they were still writing things out and I was not.
I would definitely not want to go back to paper. In the mornings, I can just sit down and have a cup of tea until I go out on my first test.
This is a fantastic legacy project that's taken away 20 years of old ways of working and brought us into the 21st century.
To be involved in the project and be now using them is a brilliant thing. I'm glad to have been a part of it.
Okay. Okay, so this was a great example of the services that we deliver to the public sector in the UK and the services we would love to deliver to the public sectors here in Denmark. You may have seen at the end of it there was a number of logos, the DVSA, the BJSS, which is us, and Kanos, which is an organisation that is somewhat similar to us in the UK. I think it's a great example of how we like to partner to take on some really big challenges. And that's one of the things that we would also love to do here in Denmark, is to partner with existing clients to provide that expertise and deep knowledge that we have around certain areas of technology and design. But so let's talk a little bit about the journey to Denmark. This is really what the brief was. Of course, we've gone through a number of different steps, and I'll try and bring some of them to life a little bit. About 18 months ago or so, we decided to make the move to Denmark. It was part of our international business plan and our expansion plan. We had great success in the UK, we grew fast, and we wanted to also conquer the world, so to say. So gone through a process of understanding that, getting the business plan together, getting the green light, and I drove a lot of that myself. Then there's a preparation phase, and I think this is really important. There's the basic things, the obvious things, like if you are establishing a business in Denmark, that requires people on the ground, as you have just heard, there's a bunch of legal things that you need to consider. How do you do that? Who's going to go? What is a legal entity structure going to look like? Is it going to be a branch? Is it going to be a wholly owned? There's a lot of different things to consider. There's pros and cons. So no one can, I can't tell you what's right for you, but certainly something that you should consider carefully. Then there's of course the local setup. And I was on the ground to do this. I relocated back to Denmark. I was on the ground to do this, is to find a place that fits you, an office space. Find a place where your employees will enjoy to be, that you can create a really great place to work. Because that's also part of it. It's not just about selling a product, it's about creating a sustainable business that will work and thrive here in Denmark in a Danish way, and that will resonate with local clients. And of course there's the actual relocation of people, and that's a whole other story in itself. I'll come back to that. Then we've launched. We are in Denmark, and I'm proud to say that we have done all that. We are here, and working with great partners and supporters to get us to Denmark has been important. So Søren is one of the guys that I've been speaking to quite a lot about this and has provided a lot of help. And we work with Invest in Denmark with the UK team that also supported us tremendously in how we would make this move. And introducing us into a lot of partners locally in Denmark. And that has been incredibly important. Finding people who can help you with recruitment, finding people who can help you with business development, finding people who can introduce you into the right networks in Denmark is key, is absolutely critical. And I think a big learning that we'll come back to as well is to work in partnership with those providers or those service providers that you might be working with. Our recruitment agency has been phenomenal in introducing us into business opportunities too, because they have a great network and we have a mutual interest to help each other. PR, build your profile, obviously important when you are launching a service company. And finally, where we are now, is about growth. So we are entering the growth phase. Again, networks are important. This week I'm meeting multiple potential clients, and all of those have come through networks, people that we have known for a while or people we have gotten to know now that we're in the country. We're looking at hosting some events, engaging with existing meetups, engaging with clients and potentially even running some of our own events to share some of the experience and knowledge that we can contribute to the ecosystem and again build more relationships. That is critical. Of course, we're going to run some campaigns, we're going to have marketing going, etc. We're looking to get onto some of the public frameworks to understand how we engage there. We're talking to people like Jeppe and others that know how to actually then win the work once you get onto the frameworks. Again, it's important with that local knowledge. And throughout, and I think maybe this is most important, is the collaboration. So really treating this as a shared project. We all want each other to succeed as we're doing these expansions and establishing ourselves into Denmark. It is good for everyone. So do that. Lean in and work with others. And then, what does it actually look like? So these are all great business steps, and we could write a little plan for how to do it. This is what actually happens at some point. You're going to pack up your kids' suitcases. You're going to leave the country, wherever you come from. I was in the UK in London. This was right after the football semi-final. You see the nice English flag here. And then you're going to arrive a couple hours later in Copenhagen, and you're going to establish a new life. And that is exciting, but it's also really hard. My kids are in Danish schools, and they have to pick up the language quick, and they have new friends, and there's a different system altogether. But it's a great place also for people to be. Copenhagen is lovely for families. So I would encourage people who are up for that adventure to do it and make an adventure out of it. I think you will not regret that, whatever happens. But it's not easy. And as an employer, as a business, it's important to think about how do you support people as they arrive into a new culture and they have to settle in and they have to be able to make those connections and networks and thrive and be whole people. I'm Danish, so yeah, it was easier, but I think that's just one thing to keep in mind as well. And so a few thoughts at the end. from being that incumbent in the UK who's got the networks and the frameworks and the business and the pipeline to being a small startup, like the number one advice I think for me is to really use the advice and the support that's available freely and from these people in this room really, and invest in Denmark and a few other places too. Google is also your friend, but here you get real personal advice and time with people, and I think that has been invaluable to us. As I mentioned a few times, like really investing and establishing partnerships. So it's not just about service providers and a contract and you will provide me a recruitment service. No, work together on how do we grow this business so we all win. Building that personal profile is important. I think that can be intimidating, but it's important to get out there, do talks like I do now, talk to journalists, use your PR network, try to get out there. It's about those relationships. And in the beginning, it's really about the individual that's on the ground. Localization, not translation. Localization is really key. It's not just about translating your existing marketing content into, well, you don't even have to translate it because everyone speaks English. But it's not just a small UK. There's a lot of little things that are important. The systems are different, the values are slightly tweaked. You need to speak into that. So spend time understanding the cultural dimensions of IT services in Denmark. And finally, I think it's important for the businesses and for the people to just remain humble and remain curious. You will arrive in a new market. It will be different. It may or may not be as good as where you come from. It might be better, it might not be. But understanding, asking questions, be curious about how can you thrive here, how can you create something of value. And finally, if you are interested in learning a bit more about BJSS, on our journey, and our way of delivering IT services, then I invite you to get onto either the QR code on this little link. We've literally written the book of Enterprise Agile. It's a practitioner book, so our consultants have written this. It's not a ghostwriter, it's not a fancy production. It's a bit scruffy at the edges sometimes because of that, but it is real hands-on experience. And how do you successfully deliver massive IT enterprise projects in a very agile way where you reduce risk and you get value to the people, to the users as quickly as you can. Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Rasmus. That was excellent. Let me just grab the clicker from you here.
Here you go.
Excellent. I think it was really useful to have a personal perspective from the UK, from a British company that has gone through this experience and has some insights to share. I agree very much with his sentiment that that you should, by all means, build partnerships, forge strong connections, and build out your networks in these markets that you're trying to access. And exactly that is what we are trying to help you achieve here at the British embassies, actually around the world. And that's something I'll get to with my next slide here. Because there is a little bit of a call to action with this whole event. We want to speak to you. We want to hear what it is that you are interested in. Why did you sign up for this event or this masterclass in selling your software to Denmark? Are you just testing out Denmark? Is it just one potential market that you could sell to? Or are you already in the process? Perhaps you've encountered a barrier. Those are the sorts of questions that we help companies answer every single day here in the Department for International Trade at the British Embassy in Copenhagen. We do a whole load of other things as well. So we do everything from market research, introductory services, and I think it's really useful to use that because we do possess that local knowledge that looking at Denmark at a glance, you think small country. But one of the really clever things about Denmark is that it's a very small, yes, but very integrated country. I mean, there's some very strong ecosystems. And that's why we can bring people together here from the private sector and public sector. That's not atypical for Denmark. So if you meet the right partner, they'll be able to connect you with whoever is most relevant and most knowledgeable about the topic that you're interested in. Apart from that, we've asked our partners, so what can you do? What can you offer to British companies? The Danish ICT Association is one of the co-organizers of this event and has helped us be put in touch with Jeppe from Fortum. They said, you know what, British companies, they get the first year free of membership in our association. This is extremely valuable because they offer all these networking events, and they can help you connect to local companies and the ecosystem here in Denmark. I think it's a brilliant offer. Of course, you should read the terms, but definitely worth exploring. Secondly, they're the ones who pointed us in the direction of Fortum. I believe that Jeppe, you're offering 15% off to members of the ICT Association. Yes. So if you're part of the association, you also get 15% off on bid writing services. Throw that in there. I think finally it's worth mentioning that we do offer these introductions, and we speak to you, we tailor it to your needs and your product and your services. Who would be most relevant for you to talk to? It's not always the thing that we will offer. Sometimes we speak to companies that are simply not export ready, and maybe they should expand their activities in their home market. But sometimes we can point you in the direction of someone you should talk to, whether that's a company that we know could be a potential client, maybe it's someone we have an existing relationship with, or maybe it's someone like what we've done with Rasmus, coordinated contact with the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who have their own embassy in London, and they've been able to offer investment promotion services, and you have a number of these organizations that might be relevant for you. Legal advice. I mean, we got some insights today from Nikolai from Magnusson, the law firm here in Copenhagen, and he has actually written up a detailed newsletter that we'll also send out after this event, just detailing some of the things that Michelle mentioned around these restrictions to certain critical areas that is very important that you're aware of when you start selling software to the public sector. So that's of course included as well. Apart from this, I just wanted to mention some of the upcoming activities that we have that you might also be interested in. So I'll try and change the slide here. So on this slide, you can see two activities we have coming up. One of them is another webinar that I'm doing together with my colleagues across the Nordics. So of course, we have the British Embassy in Copenhagen, but we also have the British Embassy in Stockholm and in Helsinki, Oslo, and we're sitting down and just giving a 10-minute pitch about each market. Of course, now you've had more than 10 minutes of pitching and talking about Denmark, but it could be that you're interested in some of these other ones. So I'd recommend checking out this event that's happening on October 26th. It's organized in collaboration with London and Partners and the Mayor's International Business Program. Secondly, as Christina mentioned, this event here is part of our Growing Green Together campaign, which is across the Europe North region, which covers the Nordics and the Baltics. We're trying to group together our activities that have some kind of future element to it. So in this case, it's about digitalization. It's about how the nature of procurement is changing. And in Denmark, there's a very strong focus on sustainability, which is something that we'll get back to when we have our Q&A session. There are a number of other events in this series, so I just recommend that you go in and explore the Growing Green Together event page, which you'll have access to when we send out these slides as well. Those were the two things I wanted to mention. Now I would like to invite my fellow presenters up here, and we can have a discussion about some of the questions that have come in during the seminar. And remember that I sent out the link in the email with the invitation to this event. There's a little link to the Q&A. You can also go to slido.com and enter the code SoftwareDenmark, all lowercase. If you enter the code SoftwareDenmark, you'll be able to ask questions. And we do have a number of questions that we can discuss. Let me just have a look, and then I can see who would be most relevant to invite up here, because I think most of these questions are related to the SKI procurement framework. So let me see. I think that we'll start there. So if I can invite my friends from Ski up on stage. We have 3 of them. Only one has presented so far, so we'll also get to introduce Lene and Leon. And you have a microphone already, Leon. So if you, is it okay if we stand out here? Perhaps Leon, you should just start by introducing yourself very briefly.
Thank you, Søren. My name is Leon Johansen, and I'm an IT developer in SKI, working with making new frameworks.
Hi there, my name is Lene Tegner, and I'm a software consultant at SKI, and I'm working with only the software agreements.
Excellent. And Ellen, we have heard from you already. So let me see, we have had some questions come in here, and I also just put the information up on the slide, so maybe that can be visible every once in a while. One of the questions is, can we apply to enter the DPS at any time, so the dynamic purchasing system, at any time, or is there a set window of time for when we can apply, and what are the costs to the supplier of becoming part of this?
It's very easy. You can attend the system or send your or apply to it at any time you want to. So it's open anytime, and we will only use 10 days, evaluate your application, and then you will know if you're in. If you're not in, if you have made a mistake or made a failure on it, we will tell you what it is, and then we will let you try again.
Okay.
So that's very easy. When you're in the system and you have won a contract, you will have to pay 1% of the monthly fee you send to the customer to SKI.
Okay. Excellent. So there is a little bit of a cost associated with being on a platform.
Yes, there's no initial cost being in the system. Only when you sell something.
Only when you start selling something.
Yes.
So anyone can sign up free of charge at any time. 10 days later, if everything is filled out correctly, then they'll be on the platform, and we'll start receiving these micro tenders from customers on the platform. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. We had a question around that. Someone asks, can the Danish public sector organizations direct award to companies on the dynamic procurement system, or does there have to be a tender process?
There has to be a tender process on a dynamic tender system.
Okay, excellent. Let me take a look here and see what else has come in. Someone named Oliver asks, do British companies need to register a Danish company in order to make a bid?
No, it's open for everyone. So there's no problem in making the bid. If you win, you will be evaluated by the customer. And if there's some problems according to the rules, you will know it there. So it's good, as told before from one in here, that you check yourself if you are ready to make a tender in Denmark.
Excellent. There's some specific requirements around each different tender, of course, but there's also a question here which asks, what requirements exist in the procurement frameworks on social value, sustainability, ethics? Do you have any specific requirements around that?
We have some specific requirements in our CSR rules, but in fact the customer can themselves make what they want in these tenders. So SKI hasn't been pre-writing anything in the material. The customer can themselves make it easier or harder for the suppliers.
And it sounds like then it can vary quite a bit from micro tender to micro tender.
You have to read the tender every time.
Yes. Is there a specific size of these tenders? I can't remember if you mentioned that, Alan. Is there a limit to how large the contracts can be?
No.
No.
So it can be small tenders. I mean, you have a range of competition in Denmark where if it's more than 1 million Danish, it's often tenderized, and so we see contracts from around that amount and up to 3-digit million Danish kroners.
Okay, on the dynamic purchasing system.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And what currency is used for pricing? Someone asked.
That depends on the customer.
Yeah.
If they accept pricing in other currencies than Danish kroner, that's fine.
Excellent. Then someone asks, did you have a comment to add to that?
We have seen, of course, in Danish kroners. We also have seen in euros, and in dollars, American dollar. So I think we have seen perhaps 1 or 2 currencies more. So that's what the customer agreed to receive.
Okay. Then someone asks, there's been no mention of AI, artificial intelligence. Is this of interest? And that's again focusing on a specific area. Perhaps you know what is coming up, what they're looking for, these customers on your platform.
Yeah, well, we might not have mentioned AI, but there's a lot of selling going on, but for standard software that can support AI. So no problem. Also BI solutions, we have seen a lot of those actually, and all kinds of stuff.
Excellent. What are some specific opportunities that you see for British companies? Is that something that you can say, if you look at the suppliers that are on the platform, is there anything that's missing? Is there anything that some of the customers would like to be on the SKI platform that they can't get at this time?
I would say that we miss something. We certainly do, but we don't know it right now. But I think that some of the companies in the system is quite alone. So we need some competition.
Right.
And we could need some better companies to join the competition. I don't think the Danish public sector have the best solution for all time. So we need some more competition and some better solutions.
Yes. And that's the thing here. SKI represents the public sector and the interest of the public sector, all the buyers that have access to the platform, isn't that right?
Yes. The better solution, the better public sector in Denmark.
Exactly. Okay. Someone asks, do you have an English version of the SKI website, or what about the materials?
No, sadly not an English version of the website yet. It might come in time. But we are working on all the materials for the O2-06 framework, so everything there will be in English.
Right.
I think that about 80-90% of all the material is in English now, but more to come.
Is that something that we could send out? Because I know I've seen it on the website. I've seen there is a folder of documentation available in English on there right now. You can also see the list of all the public sector customers that are on the list, which is a quite useful resource because you get a sense. Oh, it's actually a lot of schools. It's the various ministries, the municipalities, the regions, and it's quite good to look at that to get a sense. Even though you don't get access to the platform until you've been through the 10-day application process, it would be useful to see. Is that something I can share with the?
Of course. It's public material. So.
Yeah. Excellent. Great. Then let me see. Someone asks, what is meant by a reference? You mentioned this. You reference this quite frequently.
A reference is a contract you have with a customer.
Right.
So
and does that have to be in Denmark?
No, that could be anywhere in the world. It could be in the public sector or in the private sector.
Right.
So no specific thing about that.
Okay. And
it shouldn't be more than 3 years old.
Okay, that was what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
Does that expire? Because if it's something that you did back in 2005, maybe
Yes.
it doesn't have the same relevance today, I could imagine. Yeah, Ellen?
Yeah. So when you are at the frame agreement or the dynamic purchasing system, we will ask you to renew your references from time to time to ensure that they are never more than 3 years old.
Okay.
But that's easy peasy to do. I mean, it's a one-pager for each reference, and off you go.
Yes, and that's every few years. Is that it?
I think we ask the vendors once a year to take a look.
Can you talk a bit more about the administrative requirements that for if I'm a company that signs up to become part of the platform, I'll start receiving these tenders, and there's some administration associated with that, of course, reading through and deciding whether it's something that's worth bidding on. Can you talk a bit more about what is required when you're on there? It's free to be on there. You can update your profile as you please. You don't need to bid on anything. You can just be on there and see the tenders that come in. But could you talk a bit more about what is required?
You are sort of obliged to actually look at the tenders coming in and decide if it's something for you or not. And in practical life, if the first time you hear about it is on the platform, it's too late.
Right.
To be on the platform is a hunting license, but you need to do your sales work as normal as. So when it comes on the platform, you know it will be coming, and you have prepared.
Okay.
Then you have the best chances of winning.
So how does that work? Is that then you talk to the school or the municipality and say, just so you know, we're actually in the process of coming onto the ski platform.
Yeah. You do as you normally do when you're out selling. You contact your customers. You talk about your products and services and so on and so forth, and then you tell them, of course, that when you need to buy something like this, please go to the platform and make a tender, and we will bid on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to do it.
Okay.
And so it's a hunting license, but there will not fall any contracts down from heaven and into your laps.
No.
You need to go for it.
That's a very valuable point, I think, and I think that's also something Jeppe said, that it can be Jeppe from Fortum, that it is something that you can use proactively in your sales work. That it's perhaps a school will start listening to you more if you say that they can actually go and buy it right now on the 0206 platform, right?
Yes.
Instead of having to find ways around it or get you through the process and these sorts of things. Excellent. Any other thoughts from your side?
Yeah, when you are on the platform and you see a tender, then if you're interested in the customer, you can use the platform to ask questions to the customer.
Okay.
So we have a lot of companies that read the tender and think, okay, that could be something, but they want my answer, my bid in English or in Danish, and I will only make my bid in English, so I won't bid on this one. But instead of just having a bad day, you can write them and ask them, can I send you haven't written anything about how I should make my tender. Can I make my tender in English? And I will give you a good tender.
Yes.
And the customer can say, oh yes, I haven't thought about that. Of course you can.
Okay.
So
because that's quite good to know, actually,
Yeah.
that there is, sometimes you might encounter someone who has set Danish as the only language that the tenders can be submitted in.
Yeah.
Is that common? Do you see that frequently? Or is it fairly standard
It is becoming common that
Okay.
they want, but I think that not all of our customers think about it.
Right.
So the only thing, we have always made our tenders in Danish, and we want our bid in Danish, and we get the best. No, you don't get the best. So try to expand and see some more. Also about what you are writing for. If you are making some statements in your tender that you want some special agreements about the software. and you want the software to be on AWS or Microsoft Azure or something like that, and you want to own the software afterwards, then and you won't get any bid. So and then some companies just sit at home and think, oh, that's a stupid customer.
Okay.
But instead of thinking that, they should just write the customer and say, do you know if you write these things in your tender, you can't get any bids? And then the customer perhaps will agree that's a problem and then change the tender. So there's always a possibility to do it.
Okay. And the software itself, does that need to be translated into Danish? That's another question that we had here.
No, it's not necessary.
Okay. Does that not depend on the type of contract? Because I could imagine there are some types of software, if it's client-facing, for instance, or citizen-facing, maybe there is a requirement to be in Danish. Or
yeah, the customer decides basically. Okay. But I mean, nobody would ask for the specific cloud services to be in Danish because they are not.
Okay.
and for a lot of that type of software, it's the producer's terms and conditions that apply. So as Leon mentioned, if the customer writes something on top of that, they can. But it's stupid because they won't get any bids.
Right.
So,
okay.
Maybe you should also mention that we have some organizations that are both large and very mature here in Denmark. The taxation
authorities,
the tax authority, the customs authority, and so on, and they would not limit the bidding into Danish software at all.
Okay.
On the contrary, they might go for international stuff. The same goes for energy sector and other more mature and globally oriented companies, public companies, that is.
Yeah. Then we have one last question here, and of course we have a few more minutes left, so if any last minute questions come on to the page, I'll be able to see that. Someone asks whether health and social care services, whether they're procured nationally or by local municipalities in Denmark, or a mix?
Both. Yeah. A lot of that, what you call primary care, where the clients are in the hospital and so on. Systems for that is procured by the 5 regions that I showed on the page, whereas elderly care and care for small children and such things are placed in the municipalities. That would be the municipalities going out with that, and there could be some very specific systems that would be a one-off in Denmark. So it'll be the health administration and the health ministry that would go into that.
Okay.
So it depends.
Yeah. So you might be receiving tenders from various different authorities, and they might actually be working on the same thing, which is the healthcare sector in Denmark, perhaps.
The healthcare sector has 3 levels in Denmark.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. I have no more questions on here, so I think I'll say thank you to the representatives from SKI. You're welcome to just leave the microphone here and then find your seats again. Then I'll just round off with this final slide, which is essentially thank you so much for participating in today's masterclass. I hope it's been useful. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on the session. So we'll be sending out, along with the slides, a feedback form so that we can take your thoughts into consideration the next time we do something like this. As I mentioned, if you'd like to get in touch with us, there is a register your interest button on the page where you're viewing this webinar. So if you go on there, you'll be able to select what you'd like to be contacted about. Apart from that, we'll take this recording and we'll edit it into smaller videos, bite-sized insights, which we'll put on the website, the event page itself. So this website will transition into more of a less of an event page and more of a learning center where you'll be able to revisit the key ideas from this webinar, and that will happen in the next week or two. So look out for that, and we'll also send out an email once that is ready to be accessed. My hope is that we'll be able to add further case studies to it, further interviews, especially if we see a lot of you signing up for for follow-up and for the SKI platform. Once again, thank you for participating, and have a great rest of your day.